Hello and welcome. This is Chris from the Inspired Life podcast, and you've heard it before, I'm sure, this quote: there's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Let me break that down a little bit as far as how I understand it and how it applies to the big picture of your life, because we're all going to die eventually. That's really, if you kind of think about it, it might sound a little morbid, but that's the goal of life, is to die in a way, if you think about goals as just linear destinations. But if you think about goals really as what you achieve and what you learn and what you gain along the way, then it definitely becomes a lot less morbid. And it also makes you realize that it's really what happens along the way. It's that happiness that you create and you give along the way, because you know the ultimate destination. We all do. But how do you get there? And it's the same on micro levels, right? If your goal is to make a certain amount of money in the next year or 6 months or whatever it is, that is the goal, and you are going to take steps one at a time to get there. But there's, as they say, there's a million ways to make $1 million. Are you going to make $1 million by doing something that is just out of integrity and you're only doing it because you think that's the fastest way to make money? Or are you going to do it because that's your calling, and your calling, producing value for the world, becomes so valuable that money flows to you because people are willing to pay you for your calling? Your health goal, maybe. Are you going to just no pain, no gain it until you get what you want? Or are you going to enjoy exercise along the way? And so, again, going back to that quote, there's no way to happiness. I know a lot of people, their goal is to be happy. And you don't need, just the formation of that goal, it implies that you need something outside yourself, but you don't need anything. You don't need anything outside yourself to be happy. And I know tons and tons of people have proven this to us, because they, an amputee, for example, no arms, no legs, and they are happy. And somebody might look at them and say, but you have no arms and no legs, how can you be happy? Well, obviously the answer to that is, my happiness does not depend on having or not having arms and legs. So if you really strip it down to the basics, and you really ask yourself, like, what do I actually need to be happy? Now, this, for me personally, in the last 2 years, it's just been an absolute roller coaster. My wife and I last year, so January 2016, purchased a house, got the keys in hand to our new house on January 21st, 2016. On the same day, I got the keys on my new lease for my personal training studio. We moved not far, it was about 3 miles, so not too far. I retained all my clients, which was great. Yet at the same time, so we have this new responsibility for this house. We had a little bit of an overlap from our previous house, from the rental, so maybe like a month. So that wasn't bad. After we moved in, though, we had in the contract that the seller was going to get a free rent back. So we owned this home that we're paying a mortgage on, and we have a tenant who's not paying us. And we did this just because we had such a hard time getting this house. We made offers on 8 other homes and didn't get any of them. We live in San Jose, which is crazy, freaky, expensive, ridiculous. And that's another podcast for another day. But in addition to that, I changed my business location just because it was such a good opportunity, and this new location, which we still are in, it was an amazing move. But my lease was not up for another year. Now, I ended up double paying rent for 8 months. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay the last 4 months because they found a new tenant, and they're legally not allowed to double charge rent. So because they found the new tenant, I was off the hook. But that was 8 months I was paying double rent for my business. So anyway, that was a total tangent, and I apologize for that if you didn't want to hear that. But if you did, you got a little bit more knowledge about myself. But again, going back to, there's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. The reason I went on that tangent is because I realized one very powerful lesson. You don't need money in your bank account to be happy. Flat out, plain and So again, there's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way, and you do not need money in your bank account to be happy. So I learned the hard way. You can learn the easy way, hopefully. Just take my advice. But, we all really have to learn the hard way eventually, right? But I think, unfortunately, so many people, and myself included, I am getting better, but so many people are, we think that achieving a goal will make us feel a certain way, will make us happy, but really we spend 99% of our time in pursuit of that goal. And then if we do ever achieve that goal, it takes up about 1% of the time before we really say, I want something else now. And that's totally fine. That's human nature. But if we are happy in the process, then our whole life starts to just work. So you might ask, well, if happiness is not contingent on outside circumstances, then how do I do it? Like, what do I do to be happy? And the key to that is to change your definition of happiness and to change your criteria of how you grade yourself. So I think it's fair to say that if you're unhappy, it's because you've given yourself a low grade on whatever you are using as your judgment. So for example, if in order for you to be happy, if you have to make a certain amount of money and you don't make that much money, then according to your own criteria, you're not going to be happy. So this is not about just looking in the mirror and saying, I'm so happy, I'm so happy, I'm so happy. It's about changing your criteria. So instead of making a certain amount of money, maybe you can do something as basic as, if I am still breathing and my heart is still beating, then I choose to be happy. And ultimately, that is what it comes down to. Happiness really is a choice. It's not a destination, it's a way of moving through life. So that really is, much easier said than done. I know you can definitely say that. And I think it's only easier said than done because of one thing, and that is practice, and that is commitment. You cannot make a real commitment unless you acknowledge that it is a choice that you keep making again and again and again. That quote right there is from one of my favorite movies, Keeping the Faith. Ben Stiller and Edward Norton in that movie. Great movie. Anyway, it takes discipline. It takes commitment. I'm a personal trainer, and it doesn't take a personal trainer's credential to know that you can't just do one bicep curl and expect to be a master at anything, right? So you need commitment, you need discipline, you need time. So I'm saying all this because I want to help you get to where I am. And of course, like I said, I'm still growing and striving to get to that next level. This is one area where I feel like I've gone a long way, come a long way. So if you need support, if you need help with the quote that I was talking about earlier, happiness, it's not a destination, there's no way to happiness, happiness is the way, feel free to reach out. Message me in the Anchor app, do a call in, or if you have any insights in addition to this, I would love to hear that too. If there's something I missed, of course, I don't have all the answers, not even close. I'm still on this journey as well. I just pontificate about these things that I feel like I have at least a good handle on. And like they say, you just have to be one step ahead of the class. And not even saying that I'm a step ahead of anybody, but I've listened to a lot of audio on this. I've done a lot of practice and just love to share my insights. And really appreciate this community and everything that everyone has said. So I would love to hear what you have to say about there's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Thank you so much. And questions, comments, feel free to call in. All right. Thank you, guys. I'm signing off for the day, going home.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.